as usual, in about a week. So watch out for that and watch this again and learn all about procurement. So my name is Stephanie Criswell with DNRC's Conservation District Bureau. I think a lot of you know me, if not everyone. And this morning's training is all about procurement. Mark and I provided an overview of this last week at Springboard, and we've gotten a lot of requests for training. So we're going to give a little bit of a more robust training today. I know some of you listened in last week. So today we'll cover the changes to the CD procurement law as a result of Senate Bill 77, which, as many of you know, passed during the last legislative session, which made changes to the CD procurement statutes in Title 76 of the Montana Code Annotated. Title 76 is where Conservation District law resides in the MCA. So this morning we're going to cover those changes. We're going to talk about some of the processes involved with procurement. We're going to talk about resources and assistance through the CD Bureau and the State Procurement Services Division, which is SPSD. That's the acronym, since we live in the acronym world. Where to find templates and tools for effective procurement. And lastly, we'll open it up to a question and answer session. So today I have with me folks, professional trainers from the SPSD. So the format of the training today, I'll give a brief overview of the changes as well as some of the resources that we handed out last week. And then I'll hand it off to Natalie and Lauren with the State Procurement Services Division. And I'll let them talk about sort of their backgrounds and pronounce their last names, because I think it's Pearson, and then Lauren, I'm at a loss with yours. So you can see kind of a welcome screen, and we'll move on to the changes. So in the yellow highlights, these are the changes. There's really not a lot of changes as a result of Senate Bill 77. Mostly it addressed some of the process, which is now in MCA 18.4.303 and 304, as opposed to what was in CD procurement law. And that didn't really provide any instructions or processes or information about how to do the first one, architectural engineering and land surveying. The other major change is increases to the limits. So that's a boon to CDs, not only inflation, but it just helps provide more latitude when you're procuring goods and services. So starting in the orange box, I mentioned that some of the process stuff, which wasn't in CD law, is now residing in MCA 18.4.303 and 304. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Those limits did not change, still up to 50 for direct negotiation, and over 50 an RFQ is required. In the blue boxes, one more change in the orange box. Professional services such as auditing, or specifically auditing, accounting, and legal services, are now in the general catch-all category of all other services, which you can see down in the green box. So as it relates to that $50,000 limit, again, that's only professional services for architectural engineering and land surveying. In the blue box, nothing changed. You should all be familiar with that, or at least those who do procurement. And in the green box, as I mentioned, some of those services were added, and this is where the limits really increased. So before, for direct negotiation, we had up to 5,000, so 5,000 more. I think it was for limited solicitation, 25,000. I'm pretty certain about that, although Natalie and Lauren will correct me if I'm wrong. So all the way up to 100,000 for limited solicitation. And that process requires getting 3 bids. If you are in that category and doing a limited solicitation, it's very, very important to document all the things related to that process and that solicitation. So you're going to want to document who you reached out to, when, what you said, what the scope of work is, who responded. You'll also want to include that in your meeting minutes. So the more documentation, the better there. Over 100, this is again, all other goods and services and those professional services, you either need to do an RFP or an IFB, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So moving on, these are the laws, rules, and executive orders. So Title 18, as I mentioned, is where CD law resides. There's also administrative rules for state procurement, some executive orders. I'm not really familiar with particularly the second one, but promoting equal pay for Montana women, that is an appendix that if you're doing an RFP, RFQ, or IFB, you need to have a sheet and have the bidders sign that in their proposals. This is Title 76. So the highlights again are the changes. The first one, 76151004, just takes the limits, which were in Title 76, and puts them now in state procurement law, that matches those limits up. And really the only change other than the limits is that instead of 1004, which was repealed, it's now in 76151002. So again, just a change in the MCA number, statute number, and then those higher limits to match state procurement. 1005 is where that process part comes in, where the services in the orange box now are required to follow MCA 18.4, 303, and 304. Advertisements, no change. 76151001, which were those exemptions for advertising and bidding. I see this is wrong. It doesn't increase. I mean, the limits to match state procurement is a thing. We talked about that already. But the exemptions from advertising and bidding now are embedded in state procurement law. And maybe Lauren or Natalie, you can address that. I'm not quite sure what those exemptions are, but I can get everyone that information.
Yeah,
terms
Stephanie, we do this. This is Lauren. Sorry, we do have exemptions in 18.4. I can go through that with the group when we're up.
Okay, so yeah, again, pointing to Title 18. Thank you. I don't know why I have that error there, but I'll get that fixed for everyone before I send out this resource. 76151002, again, points you to Title 18. And then these other two, 1013 and 1014, no changes. So again, the major changes are outlined here in the yellow and not a lot. So I'm just going to roll through this resource. Again, this is what I presented at State Board last week. Just the definitions, those had already been on the previous handout, so no change there. We've added a Q&A, so these are some questions that have come in, and we'll continue to expand this as we receive more questions. So the question is at the top, and then we point to the MCA and provide some explanation. And then lastly, as I mentioned, the difference between the invitation for bid and the request for proposal, IFB versus RFP, Or an invitation for bid is when you have a very well-defined scope of work where you know exactly what you want, you have the specifications in there. So you're just opening this procurement process, the solicitation open for folks to send in their bids. And again, Natalie and Lauren will go over more specifics about that works. The RFP is when you're really asking folks to send in a proposal that defines your scope of work by how they're going to do it, what they're going to do, what the deliverables are, etc. So you can see some of the definitions in here. This should be exciting for everyone. We actually have now checklists and processes for how you need to go about the new processes that are in 18.4, 303, and 304. So I won't go over this, but I just wanted to scroll through and let you know that this resource is now available. And it's very detailed. So the preparation, the public notice, the submission, etc., all the way down to contract award and post-bidding notice. Then we have the requirements in 304 for a competitive sealed proposal. And again, the same type of information in the checklist. And lastly, the RFQ checklist. So all the detailed steps that need to be completed as you go through the process. So that's what I have to share. I'm going to actually stop sharing and turn it over to Lauren and Natalie. So I want to thank them again for taking the time. They specialize in state procurement law. And with that, it's all yours.
Great. Well, thank you, Stephanie, for including us in your presentation today. We are here as a resource for you. We know that even the word procurement just sounds like a piece of burnt toast. So we know that there's a lot of technicalities and new words involved in this. We're here to help you. My name is Natalie Petersy. It's a weird Dutch name, so don't feel bad. And my boss is Lauren Spatzerath. Nice. I like to say it with a German accent, but I'm not gonna do that for you today. We work at State Procurement Services Division, and we're gonna talk about how our office is structured, and we're gonna explain some things to you guys and share some resources. There's Lauren right there. And I'm gonna let Lauren take over now.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us to talk about some changes to your programs. This little blurb right here just kind of goes through the Department of Administration and how the Department of Administration as part of a whole is the only one authorized to spend money on behalf of the state of Montana. Now, that obviously doesn't necessarily apply to you and your conservation districts. However, it does apply to our agencies and the DNRC. So the Department of Administration delegates authority down, and that's how all the other agencies are able to spend. I included some things in the slide today to maybe help you as we move through these changes to your procurements. Right here is the procurement lifestyle. So we have this out on our website, and we have every single one of these phases that you see, phase 1 through 8, defined and forms associated with those phases that you will probably need as you're going through the process. Phase 1, the definition of need. So you need to define what you need and what that looks like. Phase 2, method selection. So this is where we get into, as Stephanie described, whether it's a invitation for bid, or as we like to refer to it, a IFB, or a request for proposals. So I like to look at an IFB as more of a procurement for goods. You have those specifications, you know exactly what you need, you put that on the streets, and you're only accepting that thing. For an RFP, or a request for proposals, you aren't exactly sure what you need. You're looking at the vendors to help you determine what you need. And you're more going with that, more going out in your proposal with a problem to help their proposals help solve that problem. So in phase 2, you develop that definition, or excuse me, that method selection. Phase 3, solicitation development. So after you've determined what solicitation method you guys are going to be using, whether it's the invitation for bid or the request for proposal, that's when you really start to define those solicitations. So for an IFB, it's pretty straightforward. You'll just want to put out the need, the specifications, the services that you want. For an RFP, you will want to put out your problem or the scope of services that you guys are looking for. And then you'll want to post an evaluation criteria, which is assessing a certain amount of points to the proposals that come in, posting that evaluation criteria within your RFP response, and then evaluating those responses, which is the next step, the evaluation process. So the evaluation process of an IFB is pretty simple. Again, you look at the most responsive vendor with the lowest price. That's what you award IFBs off of. An RFP, you go through an evaluation process with a committee. So a lot of times our committees are composed of an odd number of state or public employees. We like to go with 3 or 5. And we do that because that evaluation criteria that you guys are posting in the request for proposals will be what your evaluation committee is scoring these proposals on. And so we like to have kind of a consensus scoring method where all of the evaluation committee members agree on a final score for these proposals. And sometimes if you have even members, it may get a little wonky. So we always like to have an odd number of evaluation committees members on our committees. So the next phase is the intent to award negotiations. So prior to the 2023 legislative year, we were 100% transparent and open to the public, meaning that when we got to that phase 4 evaluation process, the public was 100% able to come in and attend these meetings, attend the evaluation meetings, attend any demos or interviews. And it got to the point where we actually had demos occurring where their competition was sitting there and videotaping the offer's proposal. So with the Constitution, the public's right to know and public's right to participate in mind, we proposed legislation in 2023 that actually took the public out of that process and became more business friendly, and brought the public into phase 5, which is the intent to award negotiations. So as you guys move through that evaluation process, you've determined the highest scoring offer or the lowest bidder, depending on what procurement method you used. An intent to award will need to be posted, the same method that you posted your solicitation. So what needs to be included in the intent to award is the offer's name, who you intend to award, the offers who proposed a solution who did not get awarded a contract, and that just needs to be open to the public for 7 days for any public feedback of the award. After that 7 days is up, you can proceed with the contract execution or continue with your negotiations. Now, to be clear, you guys can post the notice of intent to award at the same time you're conducting negotiations. And as soon as that 7th day is up, you can execute that contract. There's no need to hold off on negotiations. However, you do need to hold off on the execution of the contract until that 7 days is up. Contract formation and award. So, oh, okay. Stephanie, you back? Looks like it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm back. I have no idea what happened, but my computer just completely blanked out. So sorry about that.
No problem. So contract formation and award, it's developing your contract, breaking out all the deliverables, the milestones, what you're expecting from the vendor, and then eventually awarding. Contract administration, it's the contract management. It's managing the boots on the ground, making sure that the vendor is performing to to what you guys were expecting. And then contract closeout. So once that vendor is through with the project, you're going to close out that contract and just close out the record, document all the payments and everything like that made to that vendor, and then you guys can both move on with your lives. Next slide, please, Natalie. So this goes into kind of the invitation for bid, the request for proposal, and the sole source. One thing that I did leave off here, actually two things, were the limits that Stephanie went over previously. So as she mentioned, we have what our office calls it is a small purchase threshold. So you guys can purchase anything up to $10,000. That's, I think you guys do a direct negotiation. That's how you guys refer to it. There's no competition needed there. Anything from $10,000 to $100,000. That's the limited solicitation method. That's more of an informal solicitation. You guys can go and get handwritten quotes, or else you can use the telephone and just call and say, hey, can you give me a quote? Either way you want to go, we have templates out on our website, the State Procurement Services Division website, that allow you to do a verbal limited solicitation or a written solicitation and require all the documentation that Stephanie mentioned previously. Invitation for bid, so over $100,000, which we just talked about. It's clear specifications. You guys just want to award to the lowest bidder. Request for proposals is used when an agency wants to consider factors, or you have a problem and you want to receive proposals to help you solve that problem. A sole source, that is, you guys probably won't have those. However, that is when an agency determines that there is only one person, one company to receive a good or a service from. I like to use the Montana Department of Transportation snowplow trucks. They're tow plows. It is a trailer that is pulled behind the snowplows that MDT runs during the winters, and it's run by hydraulics and can actually navigate across 2 lanes of traffic and plow multiple lanes of traffic. That trailer is only manufactured by one company, and so that is a valid sole source. So that's a definition of a sole source. Similar to what Stephanie did in her checklist, we kind of broke out the changes for you guys as to it relates to competitive sealed bidding in 18.4.303. And it just talks about what needs to be included in these solicitations that you guys will be releasing. So in the checklists and in this screen right here, you'll see that in order for these invitations to go out, you must include a purchase description and conditions applicable to the procurement. So if you're going out for a snowblower, which I know this isn't exactly in your guys' wheelhouse, you want to make sure that all of those warranties and everything like that are there and available for the bidders to understand. Adequate public notice. So you'll want to make sure that they are given adequate public notice that you're posting this, whether it be in the newspaper or on your website, and saying, hey, we're posting this day. We can accept questions and we will answer up to this day, and the solicitation will close on this day. May not be inspected by the public until notice of intent to award has been posted. And so with those changes to the statute in 2023, IFBs, any responses to IFBs or an invitation for bids may not be publicly sent out until that notice of intent to award has been posted. So you guys can keep those close until that notice of intent to award has been posted. All these responses that you guys get to IFBs, they must be unconditionally accepted without altercation or correction. So if you're going out for a 3/4 ton pickup with an 8-foot box, you can't change it after the bid has already closed to a 6-foot box. It has to be in the specifications. You have to award on what you previously went out for in those specifications. No altercations are allowed. Bids must be evaluated on the requirements set forth in the IFB. So similar to what that bullet point above was, is that it has to be evaluated on the specifications that you put out in the IFB. In the case of a tie bid, preference must be given to the bidder, if any, offering American-made products of supplies. If you guys run into any issues with this, as this is how it's spelled out in statute, but ARM and policy, which we'll get to where you can find those here shortly, does offer alternatives. Apologies, I just had a little power surge. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're back.
You froze for a sec, but
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was a lovely face too. I'm pretty good at that. So if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to SPSD and we can point you to those ARMs and those policies. However, I will show you where those are at further down in this presentation. And the last bullet point here just goes over that notice of intent to award with 7 days to the public, allowing the public to come in and comment. So the formal solicitations, 18.4.304 is specific to the request for proposals. So as we mentioned, they must have adequate notice of the request for proposals on a website or via a newspaper. May not be inspected by the public until a notice of intent to award has been.
oh,
I wonder why. Can you guys hear me okay?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Must
and
be
another
just
one.
Lauren.
Yeah, it must just be
You
me in
guys
this
are
side of the
gonna-
building, Natalie.
So their bureau is under the Department of Administration, and their the General Services Division, I think, is in your purview. Although it would be ITSD, the IT department, I suppose. So I don't know if that's
Yeah.
DOA, but
Well, I
is.
kind of have both. I have SITSD right now that's messing with the computer, but I don't know if you guys can hear it too, but I have a weed whacker outside. So I have GSD outside. So they pick a great time to mess with the system. Both of them do. So, proposals must state the evaluation criteria, which we talked about before. You guys must have the evaluation criteria posted in your RFP, as well as the weights, so as well as the points associated with that evaluation criteria. Important, there's always a single point of contact with any of these solicitations. Once a solicitation is open, a vendor cannot contact multiple people within the agency, within your group to discuss this RFP. You want to be the single point of contact for that RFP or that IFB. And the reason is you want to make sure that the correct information is going out and it's being consistently dispersed throughout all the vendors, which is why at the State Procurement Services Division, we have a open Q&A period. So vendors and proposers are coming in and asking questions, and we post those answers directly to a Q&A board. We don't discuss any solicitations over the phone or through email without posting that discussion on our Q&A board. So it's important to keep that single point of contact intact as you move through the solicitation process, and probably until contract execution, just so all these vendors are hearing the same thing. The department is able to discuss proposal with the offerer for purpose of clarification. So in our statute, we do allow for minor variations, a vendor to come in and make a minor variation if the contracts officer can notably see that it was a mistake on the vendor's part. However, we don't need to. So if you guys can see where maybe they came in and responded to a solicitation where a unit price may have been fat fingered a little bit, and you want to give that vendor the ability to come in and rectify their proposal, you can do that. However, it's not required. Another thing to keep in mind as you go through these invitation for bids and these proposals is the Uniform Trade Secrets Act. Again, we have forms and templates, and we discuss all of these throughout all of our websites. However, we do have an affidavit of confidentiality or proprietary information on our website that you guys can easily just pull from our website and put out with your formal solicitations to allow the vendors to declare any confidential or proprietary information. What our office does when we have a vendor come in and declare confidential or proprietary information is that we send that over to our legal, who reviews it, makes sure that it does in fact meet the Uniform Trade Secret Act. If it does, then we will agree to keep that confidential and not post it publicly. If it does not, then the offer has two choices. They can remove the confidentiality claim, or else they can pull back their proposal. And then again, last bullet point, we just like to state this hundreds of times throughout statute and ARM, but you guys are required to post an intent to award a contract for 7 days before you execute a contract. So just some resources here. I talked to you guys about those phases in that nice little pretty circle. This is on our website. It goes through those definitions, it goes through all those phases. And if you drop down on those boxes, which Natalie can't because it's a screenshot, it will talk you through all of those phases and give you all of the forms that are applicable to that phase. For instance, phase 8, contract closeout, it'll teach you how to manage and close out a contract and provide you with the contract closeout form that the state uses. Next slide, Natalie. Okay. Montana procurement laws, policies, and executive orders. These are the Montana Procurement Act is the 18.4. Administrative rules is 2.5. And the Montana Operations Manual is our policies internally to the state of Montana. So those are available to you if you have any questions. Next one, Natalie. And forms and guides. So we have forms and guides and templates galore. We have them broken out into solicitations, contracts, other CEP and tier 2. So a CEP and a tier 2 are for our master contracts. However, this is also on our website and available for you guys just to download, mock up with your letterhead and use to your convenience. So I went through that. I kind of wanted you guys to get the process more than anything, but I think that I'm ready, Stephanie, to take some questions if you're ready to, or Natalie, if you have anything to add.
Okay, not hearing Natalie. Yes, let's turn it over to question and answers. I do have a few that have come up, I wouldn't say routinely, but a few times with conservation districts. So if there's time, I'll go ahead and answer those questions or ask those questions.
Awesome.
To you, Lauren and Natalie. But with that, let's open it up. And I see there's one in the chat already. Oh, that was what you put in there, Lauren. So I'll try and monitor the chat.
It looks like Karen has her hand raised. Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, Karen.
My question is, we're trying to build a building and we send out letters, invitations to bid to 5 different contractors.
Mm-hmm.
The meeting is today and we've only received 1 back. And it's over our budget.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's over your budget. Okay.
So we can just say at the meeting, or we have to make motions to say that we're not accepting any bids. It'll be reissued with, or what?
Yeah, so I guess my advice, and Karen, I'm assuming that you included maybe some language in your bid solicitation packet that if it came in over budget, you guys had the authority to not award. Is that correct?
We probably didn't put that in there. No.
Okay. Were they aware of the budget?
No.
Okay. I think that if it's over your budget, the state of Montana, we do one of 2 things. We either put the budget in so the offers know what our budget is. However, when we do that, you usually see all the offers go right to that budget, right?
Right.
Or else we reserve the right to say that we can cancel this solicitation at any time if it exceeds our budget. So I think that you, I'm sure. Go ahead, Karen.
One of the reasons we didn't put a limit on there is it's kind of like we're going to go as big as we can afford. So we put out the biggest we could.
Yeah. So you guys probably need to make some. Yeah. So you're
And
probably gonna need
so-
to go back, right? And take some stuff
Right.
out that maybe you don't need.
And
Okay.
reevaluate the size of it so that it can, but another question was, if we only get one bid back and we don't get 3 bids back, can we still award on the one?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, the getting 3 bids back, Karen, is more just to show that we're actually trying to compete it. So, yeah, a lot of times that happens to us. We'll go out for like a limited solicitation, reach out to 3 or more vendors and only one responds, and we just document it. We just say, only one responded, other 2, no response. So yeah, you're good to go if only one responds.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to highlight with that again, document, document, document.
Yes. I did put our 2.5.304, which is actually administrative rule, in the chat. What you were talking about, Stephanie, the marketing exemptions, the advertising exemptions, is in section subsection 2. Oh, and I lost it. Hold on. 2L. So fees for placing an advertisement in publication or radio, television, or any other electric media source is exempt from the Montana Procurement Act. So I just wanted to give you some background as to why you have that in your presentation.
And I just want to highlight, this seems like a good transition, that if you're using state money, if you're using grant money or CDA money, or from one of the other programs within CARD, you have to follow all of state procurement. If you're using local funds or direct contributions to the conservation district, unless it's again state funds, then you're okay. But otherwise, if it's grant money from the state, you do need to follow all of state procurement. Another point, and I'll have Lauren and Natalie pipe in on this. From my understanding, federal procurement aligns with state procurement in terms of limits, processes, and requirements. Is that correct?
Yeah, so all of the federal grants or any of the federal money that I usually see in this office, there's a stipulation in the federal funds that says that you must comply with your state procurement act. So usually it points down to the state and its procurement act and all associated statutes and rules.
Thank you.
I've never seen one that strays. Now, there could be one out there, but I've never seen one that had harsher restrictions than the state's procurement act. So
Any other questions out there? All right, I'll ask another one. We have directed, the CD Bureau has directed conservation districts to your website and your resources. And some of the feedback that we've gotten is that because the state uses those EMAX systems, which conservation districts wouldn't use, a lot of the templates have that EMAX process included. Do you have any comments on that, and the templates and resources maybe that would be most applicable to CDs?
So EMAX is our e-procurement system. Jaeger is the company that we purchase EMAX from. What EMAX is that we just take all the templates out on the website and we upload them into EMAX. So I can see maybe us referencing EMAX throughout, which I think would be an easy, if you guys wanted to use our templates, just an easy Control F, find EMAX, remove. But I don't, EMAX is just a portal where we upload all of those documents. I cannot think of a specific template that kind of goes through the EMAX process. However, if there is one, if any of you guys run into it and need me to do a quick word search or help you alter that document to make it fit your needs, I'm more than happy to do so. So always keep that in mind. You guys can, I don't know, Stephanie, if we're going to include all of our contact information out. But if there's something that you guys are looking for and it seems to be specific to Emacs, I'm more than happy to give you everything that we've got and make it easier for you guys to post your solicitations.
Yeah, on that note, I would suggest that conservation districts go through the CDB first, just so
Gotcha.
we don't overload you guys. And we'll do our best to answer the question. But if we need further explanation or clarification, either we'll reach out to you or we'll have the conservation district just directly contact you to get that information.
Awesome. We did get approved to get a new e-procurement system. So when I say that they shouldn't reference Emacs, I strongly encourage any of you guys, if you are running into a form or a template that has Emacs written all over it, or you have concerns, to just shoot it over to you, Stephanie, or me, because we're kind of in a process right now where we're removing all of that from our forms. So.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think mostly just disregard information related to Emacs is the takeaway.
Yeah.
Brian, you've had your hand up for a while. What do you got for us? We can't hear you, Brian. I see you're unmuted, but maybe
Is
put
that
your.
better?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that
yeah,
better?
yeah. Now we can
Okay.
hear you.
Yeah, I think I set up for anyway, regardless. One question that I had, just because I wasn't part of last week's procurement training, I wanted to make sure what I caught what was mentioned correctly. The law on these only relates to conservation districts spending state funding, that if we utilize our own mill levy funding or outside resources that aren't state funding, these procurement laws are not applicable?
That's correct.
Okay, so only
Yep.
state awards or state funding. Our own funding through mill levy or other revenue sources are exempt from these laws.
Yeah, it's with one caveat. So because of Senate Bill 77, most of the statutes in 76 now point you to state law. So mostly conservation districts are subject to state procurement law regardless. One of the only exceptions I can think of is the I can't say the word, EXIG, thank you.
Exigency, yeah.
Which is for natural disasters like, example, the Yellowstone floods in 2021, I think it was. But the only other one that I can think of off the top of my head is the advertising requirement. So if you're using your own conservation district funds that are in mill levy or outside of state, you would follow those advertisements, that statute as it relates to advertising. I would say the easiest thing to do in every case is just to follow state procurement law.
Right. So basically what I'm hearing is even though there's that nuance to the law, the best management practice caveat is to just follow the procurement law regardless, and then you've got yourself covered.
Yep. I think so. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think Karen or someone had their hand up. Maybe they put it.
I did have my hand up, but it was basically the same question. We're using our own funds, no grants or of any kind. But to be on the
Right.
safe side, we'll try to
Right.
follow them.
But again, most of the statutes in Title 76 of Conservation District Procurement Law point you back to state procurement laws anyway.
Sure.
Any other questions out there?
Stephanie, this is Dick Iverson. Can you hear me on the phone?
I can. I was going to ask your questions at the end if we had time, but
okay, go
go
ahead.
for it.
I wasn't able to get on the meet, so I'm just on the phone. You know, rural water systems, and dry red water is one of them out here in northeast Montana. We're under the conservation districts because they own the rural water systems. Do we follow exactly the same procurement procedure as conservation districts as far as acquiring buildings or engineering services and all that? Over.
I think, you know, I don't know how the rural water are those special districts, do you know?
No, they're a combination of, like in our case, it's 4 conservation districts joined together to create a rural water, same as Dry Prairie to the north, which is, I believe, 4 conservation districts.
So in that case, it would be conservation district law, and again, following state procurement is the default or the best management practice, as Brian mentioned.
Okay, so I joined a little late. I got mixed up on the time, but you've got some other questions later on you're going to discuss.
Well, I was just going to pose the questions that we talked about yesterday as it relates to the building that you're trying to acquire, and the design for that, and then all the electrical and plumbing, and you know how that project is going to roll out, and what procurement processes would relate to that. And I think, Dick, from our conversation, you said that the rural water, the conservation district, the formulation of those 4 plans to be the general contractor. So what I think they need to do, and this is the question to you, Lauren, is if they're the general contractor, they would do individual procurements for all the different services.
Correct.
If they and those sub awards, if they were not the general contractor and that was what the procurement was for, that general contractor, would they be subject? What procurement laws would they be subject to, I guess?
That's a really good question, Stephanie. And I guess maybe this is so when we go out we refer to them is like prime contractors, general contractors. Our contracts with a prime contractor stipulate that any subcontractors must follow that there must be a contract between the prime and the subcontractor that mirrors the state of Montana's contract. And so I do not think that they need to follow the same procurement, because those thresholds for every service are probably going to be, I mean, they may be over $100,000, but I guess I would like to maybe consult with our construction division to make sure that I am interpreting that correctly. So if I could just visit with Russ Catherman and get back to you in an email so you can put it out to the group, that would be very much appreciated.
Great. Dick, are you still on? I thought maybe.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are. Okay. So if you want to, Lauren will get more information on that, and then I'll hook you 2 up or relay that information.
Perfect.
Okay. So are you saying, Lauren, that you could split off all those individual items? Wouldn't it be the same as just one item, the plumbing, the building, the add-ons? Wouldn't that, will you total that up, and if it exceeds the 80,000, you would then go to selecting bids, right? Or soliciting for bids?
And so we work under 18.4, which is goods and services. So services is kind of where it comes into play for you guys. I know you have some goods and some heavy machinery with greater thresholds. That construction material is a different statute. That those construction projects is a different statute. We actually have a different division that works for those. So I'm just going to touch base with them to make sure that I'm giving you the correct information. And then I'll get back to you. I'll reach back out to you. Okay.
Okay.
And
That's
in
fine.
that case, Dick, like we talked about yesterday, and if folks remember the blue box that was in the middle, that talked about construction. And that limit for direct negotiation is $80,000. Above that, you'd have to go out with the full-blown procurement process. But again, that only would come into play if you were using some other dollars. And I think in this case, you're using all state dollars, or at least partially state dollars, so.
So what was it you just said? We would fall under the 80,000 then? Or
Well,
under the
I
rule
don't
of 80?
know.
It's
What-
both state and some ARPA type money. It's a
Okay,
combination, some Richland County money.
so you would want to follow state procurement. And are the limits 80,000, do you know, for, I believe they are. I think they're the same as conservation district law,
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe they are, Stephanie.
so. So more information to come on that, Dick.
Okay, thanks.
And one of the things for everyone else's benefit, I sent to Dick was a worksheet that I can't remember. Do you remember what it was called?
Let me look here real quick. It's called the Purchasing Decision Worksheet. You know, it's really helpful. Purchasing Decision Worksheet. It's a
Thank
2-page,
you.
3-page,
So-
and it's got a nice flow chart on it.
Yeah. So essentially what it does is help you define what your project is. And once you go through that workshop or worksheet rather, it helps you get to what procurement process you would use, and helps you define the scope of work. So I'll make sure everyone has access to that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Anyone else? Anyone out there have any other questions? All right, well, I don't see any hands up and I don't see anything in the chat, and we're just about out of time. So I want to thank everyone again for joining, and I really particularly want to thank the State Procurement Services Division, SPSD, for helping us with the training for this. I know conservation districts, through different formats, whether it's MACD board or the legislative committee or one-offs, has really requested training. So this won't be the last. And again, we do have a lot of new resources that we'll make sure you have access to, including this PowerPoint, Lauren's PowerPoint, and the worksheet that I went over in the beginning, the purchasing decision worksheet that I sent to Dick yesterday, and a whole lot of resources. So you will probably need training just on what the resources are. As I mentioned earlier, I think the best thing is for the Conservation District Bureau to field the questions. And then if we need further clarification from Lauren and her team, we will help mediate that. So I think that closes us out.
Well,
Thank you,
y'all so
everyone.
much. We're here to help.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Everybody have a great day.